And so they never had a chance. You can't be something that you don't even know. If you're born into a world where boys and men are already under attack by law, they are accused of being molesters, so-called spousal abuse and all that, you don't have a chance. And then in your home, the mother is running the home, the father's too weak, if he's there, to stand between the children and the mother. So the guys don't have a chance. Like me, I know about the other way, the real way, the true way. I know that boys should be boys and men should be men, because when I was born into the earth, that's how it was. But if you're born into the earth where women are propped up and men are deliberately kept down in the homes, in the schools, in the workplace, then you don't know anything else. But they're starting to wake up and come back to their natural state of being. Our battle is a spiritual battle. It's a warfare between good and evil, right versus wrong. Good versus evil, right versus wrong. And if ever there was a warfare between men because they represent God on earth, they're the sons, it's happening now like 90 going north. And especially against white men. And I've been saying that for 30 years to white men. Y'all need to speak up because they've already taken out the black man. The black man is worth a dime. He's running around marching and rallying and burning and stealing and killing and blaming. There's a group of black men dressed in black running around down in Georgia, Stone Mountain, Georgia, and other places, demanding Texas. Give us Texas. If you don't, we're going to leave. We're going to go to a country that will give us something. I never heard men beg like that before. But that's what's happening now because men have no examples, for the most part. The name of the group is NFA.
Not fucking around.
Not effing around coalition. A guy by the name of Grandmaster J. It's embarrassing to see it, but they're marching up and down the streets of Georgia, maybe other places, demanding free stuff. And if y'all don't give it to us, we're going to go to a place where they will give it to us. If they were to give it to them, they're not going to be able to work it. They're going to destroy it. I interviewed this guy, Grandmaster J, on the Fallen State last week. It's going to be coming up for me. But black people are not going to, if they gave them a whole country, an entire country, and no one lived that but blacks, they'll destroy it. They don't know how to run anything. So I don't know why the men I do know why the men are acting like the women, blaming the white people. Making white people seem superior to blacks. They don't realize they're making white people seem superior to blacks by begging. The men begging. They're not taking what they have in front of them and making it work. Amazing. And don't forget to like, follow, tweet, subscribe.
Step into my danger zone. Feel the hot lead of this chrome.
Use words in a different way, in different senses, right? in the same argument to
Equivocation is
achieve
when
a
equivocation is
wrong
when two words
conclusion.
can mean two
That's
different things.
equivocation. But those are
Tasteless.
fallacies. The ones you're posing now, it
Tasteless.
doesn't make any sense, and it is not a fallacy.
Is when it
Can I
can
make a
mean
point?
different things. Okay, go ahead.
Can I just point out for your argument's sake? Typically, if you look at these other two articles I posted, they start off with the traditional definition and the accepted definition is flawed. Here's what we're talking about. So we could say the study of religion and sociology, of course, has been related to humans and human discussions and human society. I think we should expand this to include animal societies and look at religion from a non-human point of view. So you acknowledge the current definition, then you ask the reader to extend a grace to you that you're going to extend it to a world that's not part of the current definition, on the theory that there might be value in it. But you're acknowledging that the current definition is this. Then you're asking, let's see what happens if we extend it. That is an okay thing
I
to
would
do.
agree with you.
I'd be down for that.
Exactly.
would
I
agree
agree.
with you.
I agree with Rab.
I would
agree with
agree
Rab
with you, but
100%.
I have an objection, and let me tell you why. So if you are taking that definition to be normative, I would agree with you.
One.
But since, listen, pay attention. But since that definition is not normative, it is descriptive. The description
Two.
can be flawed, right? Now, what you are
Three.
describing here, when you're talking about sociology, are models of individuals, right? And how they relate to other individuals in groups. Now,
5.
you don't care about the nature of those individuals. You're just studying the behavior of each individual within a group. This is why
6.
it's called
6.
sociology. Now,
7.
that's what I'm saying. This is the phenomena that we're trying to describe. In order that definition should be descriptive, and that description can
News
be
alert from the Hillsborough County Courthouse
accurate,
today, where a short time ago a jury reached a
very
decision in the
precise,
sentencing of Ronnie O'Neal.
can be-
The jury had to decide life or death for the man who murdered his girlfriend and their daughter. Fox 13's Gloria Gomez is there at the courthouse tonight. Hi there, Gloria. I know this is a particularly gruesome and heinous murder, especially to hear what this little boy went through. So what did the jury decide?
Yeah, 4:30 today, they handed down a life sentence. Now, the judge did not ask specifically who voted for life. They're not allowed to do that. But she did poll the jury to see if everybody agreed with that sentence. And one by one, they said, yes, that was their verdict, life in prison. Now, as you know, Mark, it only takes one juror to vote for life in prison in order for Ronnie O'Neal to get life in prison. There was no visible reaction by O'Neal when that verdict came down. He sat there quietly, kind of stone-faced, no real reaction. There was no visible outburst. Nobody made a peep in the courtroom, and that's probably because the judge admonished all of the people in the courtroom not to make any noise, not to have any visible verbal reactions to whatever the verdict was. So everybody kept their cool in the courtroom. I can tell you, outside the courtroom, the defendant's family and the victim's family were pretty much walking out at the same time, Mark, and the deputies made sure to keep each side separate. But I did hear Kiana Barron's mother speaking to the media, talking about the fact that her life will never be the same without her daughter, the fact that she probably won't have much of a relationship with her grandson. Ronnie O'Neal, as you know, he survived this, but eventually was adopted. So she was in anguish, talking and crying in front of cameras about how hard that's going to be for her, Mark. So,
Give you any indication about what they were saying?
yes, in fact, she, as soon as she was dismissed and the judge said, you know what, you can talk about this case now to anyone you want to, she stepped out of the courtroom and immediately went up to the victim's family, shook their hands, and gave her condolences to the victim's family. I have never seen that cover in court, ever.
What the fuck? What is this? What is this?
Fabricating fictitious government you ever seen. By the time it's all said and done, you will see who is the mass murderer. In Tampa Bay, the state of Florida. You will know why what occurred on March 18, 2018 occurred. And the evidence is going to show that law enforcement tampered with evidence to meet their such high burden of proof. Because originally, it wasn't enough. So we had to tamper with evidence. Since it was
This
such
guy is so crazy.
evident already, but we still, the 911 call that you just heard cannot be proven that it was made because after I called for an investigation of those 911 calls, all of a sudden they become missing from all evidence. The evidence is going to show Kenyatta Barron supposedly made a 911 call, but you cannot find that on her call log, which we pulled from her actual phone. They say she made a call at 11:43. There's no 911 call at 11:43 on her call log. All of a sudden, after I called for an investigation of the original call, that's what the evidence is going to show.
He's his own lawyer.
Evidence is going to show I look alone. And I am backed by a mighty God.
I look alone, but I'm back
Evidence
by
is
my
going to
God.
show I love my kids. Evidence is going to prove to you this whole entire case has been tampered with and fabricated. Evidence is going to show you will not see any pieces of her arm in that closet where she was shot. You should see some evidence of
What the fuck?
We're starting first here at 6 with this boy's act of bravery after surviving the unthinkable.
I just saw my dad holding a shotgun and my mom, and mom screaming at him.
That little boy testifying at his father's murder trial. He's the son of Ronnie O'Neill, his father on trial for the murder of the boy's mother and sister, and also for trying to kill Ronnie, allegedly. Now, because he's representing himself, this creates the unusual scenario of the father cross-examining, questioning his own son. The man is accused of trying to kill him, and now he is basically questioning his son's testimony. Fox 13's Aaron Mesmer is live at the courthouse in Hillsborough County. Aaron, even separated by video screen because the boy is in a remote location, this had to take incredible courage by this now 11-year-old boy.
Yeah, Chris, he was incredibly brave. He showed unbelievable composure in that remote location as he gave his testimony this morning, followed and had to describe all of these horrific events that occurred that evening. What you were about to hear is part of little Ronnie's testimony. He's 11 years old now, followed by some of the cross-examination that he experienced with his father, who, as you said, is representing himself. This was the first time that they have seen each other and spoken to each other since that the attack on March 2018.
State, you ready to proceed?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I just saw my dad holding a shotgun and my mom, and mom screaming at him.
And your father had a shotgun. What happened next? What did he do?
My mom ran in my sister's room. My mom ran in my sister's room into the closet. And then my dad said, come in here and come kill the B-word.
Did you hear any shots from the shotgun before that?
Yes.
How many times?
One.
Was there a time when your mother was able to get out of the closet?
She was stumbling outside, and then I just saw my dad chase her.
What do you remember happening next?
My dad told me to walk around and say some words.
And do you remember what words your father told you to say?
Allah Akbar.
Allahu Akbar?
Yes.
Did he do something to your sister?
Yes, he hit her with an axe. And then he went in the garage, I followed him. He put me on the ground, and then he had his foot on top. I was laying on my stomach, he had his foot on top of me, and he was holding me down. And he was lighting a match.
Mr. O'Neill, any questions?
How you doing, Ronnie?
Good.
It's good to see you, man.
Good to see you too.
Did you see me shoot your mom?
No.
Did I hurt you that night of this incident?
Yes.
I did. And how did I hurt you?
He stabbed me.
And investigators have said that Ronnie O'Neill tried to set his son and their house on fire before this night of violence ended, according to investigators. Again, that was the first time that father and son have seen each other since that violent night back in March 2018. The boy's father, what you kind of heard there was him trying to call into question his son's recollection of the events of that night, and he says that there's some kind of inconsistencies in between what the boy says now and what he had said to detectives and attorneys in the years that followed that night. But there's one thing, though, that the prosecutors have really tried to hammer home here. What they tried to make sure the jury understood is that, in their opinion, there's only one person who could have carried out the crimes that were committed that night, and that person is the defendant, Ronnie O'Neill III. Live in Tampa, Aaron Mesmer, Fox 13 News.
You guys are crazy. Dude, that guy's so lucky. What the fuck?
Mr. O'Neill, you need to speak audibly so that the jury can hear what you're saying.
Yes, man. I haven't done this.
Man. How do I run so bad?
He showed you a fraudulent recording where they allege that I beat Kenyatta Barron to death. He talked about Mr. Khalil Brown, my neighbor who stayed across the street. But if Mr. Khalil Brown was a help to them proving me guilty beyond reasonable doubt, they would have called Mr. Khalil Brown. But I called Mr. Khalil Brown to be a witness for me. I didn't ask him to lie about one thing that he saw that night. I asked him to tell the jury exactly what he saw that night. And you have to ask yourself why that is. Because he's playing a fraudulent damn recording of me beating Kenyatta Barron 15 damn times when that did not happen. And like I told you earlier, you will know the truth, whether in this trial or the next one. Better believe it.
Fuck me, dude.
And if you think I'm here to play around with y'all, God damn it, I'm not.
All right, Mr. O'Neill, please stop using swearing language. It's not appropriate in a closing argument.
He's like, oh shit, this whole speech is full of...
Now he played a recording that was sped up. Why didn't you play the regular recording that people can understand what the call was saying?
Objection to the defendant asking me questions, Your Honor.
I'm going to sustain
I'm talking to people.
Mr. O'Neill, listen, please just keep in mind this is not personal towards the prosecutors. Please keep your comments directed towards the evidence and the law. Thank you.
This guy, this is
I know for a fact Kenyatta Barron's recording from her phone did not record calls.
This guy killed his wife and daughter and then decided to represent himself, and he's crazy as fuck.
Sped up like that.
I'm going to object now. He's talking about facts, not in evidence of what he knows.
Again, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, as you were instructed, the closing arguments are just that. They're not the evidence or the instruction on the law. It's just what the parties believe the evidence shows or does not show. All right? Thank you.
You heard Mr. Khalil Brown. You've been hearing me for 2 weeks now, telling you that they committed criminal acts against me with the 911 calls and that fraudulent video that they just showed y'all. Now, I'm gonna prove it to you.
Clearly another victim of white privilege. If it wasn't for the system holding him down, he would have turned out so much better. He wouldn't have killed his wife and daughter if it weren't for whites and slavery 200 years ago. It's just sad that slavery 200 years ago made this guy crazy and kill his family.
You heard Khalil Brown. He said that he was actually...
Oh yeah, he got life jail. Yeah, he's guilty. He's very guilty.
Sure that I only hit Kenyatta Barron 3 times. You heard. I called him to tell you that. I ain't running from nothing. They didn't call Khalil Brown to tell you that. I did. You have to ask yourself why that is. Because I want you to know the actual facts. I did kill Kenyatta Barron.
He just said he killed her.
But I want you to tell it like it is if you're going to tell it.
He just admitted to killing her in his closing statement. What? Never interrupt your enemy when he's making a mistake. Do I write this in all caps? What in the fuck? Who'd she kill? Kenyatta Barron and a 9-year-old daughter. And he stabbed his son. He attempted to kill his 8-year-old son. Well, at least he failed at that. Is this the girl he killed? She looks really pretty in this picture. She has pretty eyes and cheekbones. He killed an angel. That's the little girl he killed. Is this the same one? She was gorgeous. Is that what he looks like? He looks better without fucked up hair. What is this haircut? He had a beautiful family, what an idiot. I don't know, that's a Florida judge. It's probably just a Monday for her. God, this fucking tasteless guy is so stupid. I wish he'd shut the fuck up.
Essential attributes that define or captures the essence of the observation. So that is what a description.
The essence.
Yes.
What is the essence?
This is what a description is. Like
Tasteless, can
observation.
you send me a DM of what you want to be right about,
of
and I'll tell you you're right
attributes.
about it, because this is taking forever.
Now, if we're
Did anybody
talking about
actually listen to that?
No.
If we are,
He's not
actually
listening to
talking
anything
about
anyone
a-
else does. Why should we
a
hear what he
descriptive
says?
definition.
Well, I was just
No,
wondering
it
because I
feels like-
didn't.
Can I?
No, because it seems like the entire point here is that you had a discussion with a woman who said she believed in X because of Y, and you said, I don't believe in your definition of Y. And now this has been an hour and a half conversation of you have different definitions of Y. As people keep pointing out to you, that's the only thing we've been discussing by
You're
definition.
misunderstanding that.
I've
Right.
defined it. I've described it. I'm not even telling you had to. I'm just describing the situation. This was descriptive.
I even
but I think you're
tried to.
misunderstanding
I
the
even
situation.
tried to move past the definition and simply engage with like the spirit of what you were saying, and you still, in the end, dragged it back to the definitions
That's
because
incorrect.
you know,
I
according
asked
to you, it was important.
There's nothing else to argue about.
Oh,
This
no,
is-
Morgan, let me tell you where you're wrong on that.
I was
This
asked
is
about
worse than
by
9/11.
This guy.
But isn't this Humpty Dumpty like when he's on the wall saying like it matters?
Shut up,
You own the words or others.
Philo.
So like this is a question of like who's the master of language, me or the dictionary, kind of thing like that. Isn't this like Humpty Dumpty just randomly defining words however he wants when he's talking to Alice?
So guys, let me give an example of a bad definition.
Yes,
Oh, please
the Humpty
don't.
Dumpty
Like, we
analogy
can-
works. Yes.
Please don't give us any more
Sounds like-
definitions. I beg you.
It sounds like a red herring to me.
This is just
No,
an
this
example.
is
This is
just
just an
We
example.
already
That's the best
have an
area.
example for you.
I think you're
Like
lying.
I said,
Definition
tasteless is a red
sociology
herring.
only according to humans. That we already know you have like an example of a bad definition to you.
Yes.
Communism
Agreed.
was a
It is
red
not to
herring.
me. Like, listen, we can all have this judgment based
I was
on
waiting for the
fact that
clue
whether
reference.
our
Very nice.
observation.
You're welcome.
So listen. Let me
No.
ask you something. If you were asked to describe, let's say for instance Morgan,
I hate
right?
you, Tasteless.
And I'm gonna ask you to describe him, right? And say, hey man, you know what is Morgan like? Now you could say, well, he's an asshole, right?
She.
And that would be your
He's
definition
an
of
asshole.
Morgan.
Gee.
Listen. Now, we can all
Hey,
see and say,
tasteless.
well, Morgan
Tasteless.
is
She's
more
an
than
asshole.
right?
Yeah, you've known
Like,
me for
he's
years,
white,
Tasteless. Come on.
Don't be a fucking dick, dude. Like, grow the fuck up for once. She's an asshole.
Morrigan is rather a female name, by the way, just as an FYI. She's the
Oh,
goddess of
and
war
actually-
and death. So
that
I'll be a
makes
bit
it very
careful.
interesting.
Fucker.
Wait,
You fucking little piece of shit.
In this case, it's very prescriptive as well.
Tasteless, you're being a good content
Since it is a
generator right now.
description,
But don't
since
do
we are
that.
trying to describe them, the
Alex,
more
he doesn't know what
precise
that means.
and the more
That's too
less
nuanced.
vague, and the more exclusive, right? That we can be, that we can determine what definition actually describes him the best, right? Now, this is a judgment we can all make, right? And this is why you can challenge certain definitions to be incomplete. You can be too inclusive, too vague, or too precise, or too narrow. You could judge that. You can. You have that ability, right? Based
Yeah,
on
you
your
can have that
observation
ability.
You can
and
narrow. We know
the
that.
description.
I'd-
Okay, great.
I'd
Now,
like to put a question
you
on the
cannot
table
claim
when
that.
Tasteless
You cannot-
eventually
you cannot-
finishes.
Hang
you
on a
cannot
second,
contest
Tasteless. You're
normative
corrected.
definition,
You're corrected several
right?
times.
You cannot
You're
contest
not
them
gonna.
because they are defined as they are. Like, you cannot contest the triangle should be considered four angles.
He's doing it on. He's
Wait,
doing it on
is this
purpose.
some, wait,
By the
is
way,
this some
It's
transphobic
described to
shit?
be
Is
what
that
it
what this
is.
is?
When you
Apparently.
say
Subtly.
triangle, you
Yes,
say
he's
a
subtly
triangle
doing it.
ought to be
This
this.
is
That was
so
pretty
fucking
subtle. It's pretty
This is
blatant.
defining
I
It's like-
spaced
it's
out.
getting
What's
more
going on?
ought to be.
Yeah, it's getting more blatant
That
as
is
we
a
go on.
normative
He's turning us into a
definition.
transphobic
Now,
thing,
I'm not.
I think.
Yeah,
I'm not-
obviously.
I am not challenging a normative definition. I am challenging a descriptive definition.
I've got
Yeah,
a
you're
question
just
I'd like
being a
to-
dick, pretty much.
I've got a question I'd like to put on the table. Would people not much prefer to talk about, the social structure of collaborative animals in the animal kingdom and their
Oh, I would love
ability
to do
to
that.
express motion and mourning,
Yes,
as
good
opposed
idea.
to some sort of
Yeah, I would
definition
really
of
interesting.
shit like this?
Yeah, I like to
Not
do
in
like the religion,
tasteless?
like religion of crows would be awesome. I would like to, talk through how you could determine if crows were
Well,
religious.
the
That
Morrigan
be
would be the expert on the religion of crows because they're her messengers.
I am rather into crows, actually.
What
And
does
tasteless,
crow
I
mean?
think
But
your
it's right.
surname of opinion is all you're giving us.
How do you have
It's
sex
an
I've
with
got
a
a flock
crow?
of crows. I've got a flock of crows I've been feeding every day. They come by, ask for food. I've
You
got like
know
5 or
that's
6.
not what I meant.
But I have crows I like.
No, but
Yeah,
I do find it interesting. One of the more that we start to over the last few hundred years of actually looking at the animal kingdom and realizing actually the separation between humans and the animal kingdom is I think becoming more and more marginal. It's probably actually the best vegan argument out there for annoying vegans to use.
Yes, I think we're devolving
vegans.
into monkeys.
But again,
right?
I think that's an interesting proposition. It's
I
actually a
would
conversation that has some value rather than just
And
talking
Morgan is
about
leading
the
the way
meaning
there.
of things
Right.
and how we define them and how everybody's wrong in their definition.
Tasteless,
Everyone-
That is
you're
just
the
boring.
one in the way.
Everyone
dummy.
presupposes
I'm
we
not even
evolved
doing
from
anything.
monkeys.
I know
but, like,
Morgan's not even talking. And
Clearly we
she
are
still
turning
gets the
into
blame.
monkeys.
What the fuck is wrong with you, Tasteless? You fucking idiot.
He's a dick.
Yeah, he's like a really, honestly, fucking disgusting.
Is
bad
this why you're
person.
salivating?
You know, it's
You're a
weird
bad
because
person, dude.
Tasteless, I'm gonna let you get away with that because I know you're only doing it to get away from the fucking conversation anyway.
Yeah.
It's that.
I'm just
It's that
being-
kind of bad behavior. Lets him go on
I
rants
am
about
being
what
respectful
definitions of
for
things
other
are.
individuals within this society.
spoil the
right?
boy,
I'm
you
just being
spoil him.
studying the sociology of this room. That's all.
Could you?
Most studying is done silently as an observation to collect data to then come to some sort of inference on. That's generally how I study shit.
Yeah, it is very interesting to observe certain humans interacting with animals.
What are you, a
It's
peeping
very-
Tom?
Just
He's like making a joke about like me being an animal or something. I think I can't quite.
Is he
figure it
making
out.
a joke? I can't tell.
I mean, we are all animals.
Watch the
I
wild
mean, except for
Discord
me,
channel.
I'm actually a demon, but you know.
And now someone might white knight through somebody. Hold on. We now see in the corner someone unmuting. Be very careful. We have we need our David Attenborough in here.
Yeah, it took me a
describing
second,
the
but I get
events.
it. I get it.
Because I can do nowhere close to the accent. We need Top Hat to do it instead.
I can probably get a little bit into David Attenborough and a little bit of how he speaks, but I'm not very good at his accent.
Right.
Because I'm not old enough to carry it off.
Listen, I've been studying you, and I already have a conclusion. I mean, conclusion. And the conclusion is that sometimes emotions get in the way.
Who
of
have you
judgment,
studied?
and
Who
people
have
are
you
being
studied?
objective- Listen, everyone in the
You have studied everyone in the room.
Oh,
Mr. Therapist, psychologist, let's go.
are
What
able
does
to
Jordan
see
Peterson
where the
think
truth
about
lies,
me?
and who is in the right and who's in the wrong. But for people
Man,
who
I wish
dislike
someone would think
whatever,
about me that much.
you know,
Jesus.
dislike me the way I portray things or whatever, they tend to disagree even with a rational argument, with a strong and sound argument. They tend to
Wow, so
disagree because
superior.
The emotional aspect is getting in the way of
Tasteless,
their
maybe
judgment.
it's a you thing. Like every room you go into, somebody inevitably calls you stupid and makes fun of you. And maybe it's a you thing. But
I think it could be summed up as cool story, bro.
Okay.
You give me your opinion. Great. Do I feel there is any substance to your opinion? Yeah, you're reasonably articulate and how you're trying to
Yeah,
express
you're
it.
just proving me
But all
correct.
you're giving me is your subjective opinion. And your definition and meaning of where you disagree with other people's use of wordage.
But
So
subjectivity
what?
is truth. Subjectivity is the truth, bro.
The only
You also make us sit through long
honest,
sermons to
subjectivity
try
is
to
more
figure out
important
what
than
you're trying to say, and most of the time I just doze off anyway because I can't even understand what you're fucking saying half the time.
You think it's gonna be funny, right? It starts like it's gonna be funny, but this
Listen,
is
my
my
conversation is just the sign for intelligent and
No,
knowledgeable.
babbling is not fucking
Most
away
idiots
a
are not
sign of
going to understand
intelligence,
what
and
I'm
you
saying.
say every other
They
word
don't have what
wrong,
it takes
so.
to keep up with the arguments and shit. Only the smart individuals.
Understanding gobbledygook is not a sign of intelligence.
Morgan, you don't understand anything.
Actually, wait, no. Understanding gobbledygook. Actually, no.
So let me
I
point out-
take it back. Understanding gobbledygook would actually take a certain degree of intelligence.
Yeah, so let's point out some things in the conversation here. Morgan, in multiple times, has said things like, "Oh, that's a good point. All right, I'll take what you say and let's move on." And has said that, and most of us have said that. I have not heard Tasteless say that once. Of, okay, you're right. Let me adjust. I haven't heard that. I've heard everyone else in the conversation yield, make subtle corrections, describe different points, and Tasteless not doing it. So if anything, it's just not. We're doing everything we can to yield to try to bend what Tasteless is saying, and he's easily out of any point because he doesn't want to be understood. Because otherwise, he would start coming towards us as well.
And he doesn't want to listen. He just does not want to listen. Every time
But
someone
he's
says
talking
something.
to 4 people at one time.
Yeah,
and
but
everyone is asking him a bunch of questions.
he's
and
had
he's trying to
50% of the
respond to 4
speaking
people.
Why are you defending him, Nate?
Nathan,
What
do
is
not
wrong with
defend
you?
He's had 50% of the speaking time, even though he's talking to 4
Morgan,
people.
you
Think
had
about that.
you had
And
the
now,
other
the white
speaker
knight-
from
Nathan,
Morgan.
Now,
I swear
Nate,
to
come
God, I swear to
on.
God.
Why are you defending this guy who I walked in and automatically could tell that he was a dick?
Dude, he's a con man, he's a creep, he likes Nick Fuentes, he likes alt-right shit, he's a MGTOW.
He's a transphobe.
Wait, who is?
Tasteless.
Tasteless.
Oh my.
No, his accent isn't a con man accent. The way he speaks is a con man. Like, he speaks in ways to trap you.
The way he speaks.
Listen, man, I've got these
No,
Right, he does like manipulative shit. I don't know.
Thank you, that's what I mean.
I didn't see it. I saw a good argument today, and Morgan got destroyed. That's all I want to say.
What was the
Oh
good
man,
argument?
I'm so butthurt after my beating today. Okay, whatever.
Destroyed.
I mean, you have fun stroking to that.
Once I got you figured out, Nathan, then you go and defend Tasteless.
Why don't we
Destroyed.
Yeah. Yeah, say it.
Oh,
He might have a phone call, but yeah. At any rate,
He might have.
no one on this.
He also,
destroyed
while
the
we're
double
talking about
businesses.
probabilities, he also might be a bitch. That's why he's deafened. That might be the case.
Yeah,
as
yeah.
well.
You know, he might also be a bitch, but I've said that before and been wrong. So.
Well, I'm not wrong. He might be a bitch.
I think the main part is you just disagreed with the definition of bitch, even though it's commonly accepted as the definition of a female dog.
Look, you're conflating.
Is how it all started, though.
Yeah, that's actually a very short version of what I walked into this morning. Yep.
Wait, that start. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, it's morning. Jesus Christ.
Whoops, Morgan. Whoops.
The night transitioned.
Hey guys, I'm gonna unmute Tasteless now. I don't know if that's a bad idea or not, but I'm gonna try and get him to stop misgendering people, whether it's on accident or on purpose.
Just needs to answer some
you
questions.
guys could stop dogpiling him and let him respond to someone once they say something. Maybe
I'll back
that'll,
off.
Maybe that'll prevent.
Before you do, I'll point out that he's been on Tom's server pulling this shtick for like a week or more, 2 weeks almost.
I don't even know what the shtick is, but misgendering
Attention-seeking
people,
behavior.
misgendering people on purpose seemingly is very rude.
Yeah, I agree.
It'd be different if he like hadn't like known me for years. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like we don't even have to talk about that. Like that's the one thing that makes me feel
Let's
like
just move on.
No, I agree. I agree.
Yeah. It's the one thing that made me feel like this was intentional. Also, it happened multiple times, and you corrected him.
Anyone else have another topic to lobby?
Saying that, yes. So about social animals, can we go about the fact that that pod of killer whales that came up from Mexico and was able to figure out how to, or had taught themselves how to kill great white sharks and eat them, and would just come up the side of the western coast and just kill as many great whites as they could, making all the great whites flee across the Pacific. Yeah, they pump them up from the bottom, flip them over, and then eat them. Oh, that was incredible.
What do you want to talk about?
Fucking amazing. They just put the sharks to sleep. Just
I doubt that they actually I feel like they're playing with it rather than like coming up with a
probably, but in playing
methodology
with it, they learned that it is something that makes them stop moving and makes them easy prey.
Well,
and they learn to do that regularly.
I think they
Is there a
probably,
scientific
like
method?
the way that
Is
people in Korea put salt on dead squids to make them dance. I feel like that's probably the same
Well,
thing.
no, but is our scientific method an extension of play? It's basically, did we develop that from just playing with things? Is that kind of where it came from?
I mean,
children
most
play all the
predators.
It is generally used to develop the skills that are used to be productive.
Yeah. Children play all the time, and they're learning how to do things. So isn't play, if the animals were just playing and figured out something, isn't that development? I mean, isn't that effectively a scientific test? If we do X, Y happens, let's do it again. Ooh, that's cool, let's do it again.
Yeah, they're developing a strategy. So I don't what's the point though? It's cool. I'm interested in it, but what's the point?
The point is, it's cool.
Yeah.
It was a different conversation. I kind of
Listen.
that. Also, the other killer whale fact I know is that they are the only natural predators of moose. Or one of the only natural predators of moose.
I find bees to be really interesting because it's I do think that intelligent and emotionally intelligent animals are really interesting, but for the longest time that I was interested in zoology, I really didn't give bees and ants enough credit because they're not really social in the same way, but they can accomplish tasks with a impressive efficiency.
Ants
And
You know,
There's a
swines
hive
are
mind kind of thing.
racist.
It's
Like
racist?
swines are very racist, man. I mean, you see racism in swines very often.
You mean pigs?
I really admire
Swine?
the slavery
No,
in an
not
ant
swines.
colony.
I think
Swans?
swans.
Swans?
Right, swans.
Are you sure? I mean,
Yeah.
it sounds.
I mean, the white swans and the nice-looking ones, they will get together, and the ugly ones, or the ones with had stains or whatever, they are left behind and smugged out of the group.
I'm interested in learning more about that because it sounds like an
Bigoted.
old wives' tale, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was
No,
true.
it is.
I think it's true. I
No,
think
it
it
is
happens
true.
in all animal groups.
Yeah. I just know that there's a lot of old sayings and shit about that date back
Joining
to
me right now
before
is
we
criminal
really
defense
That's
attorney
the
down
question.
in Florida, Anthony Rickman. Anthony, so good to see you. Do you have us?
Hi, Andrew. Thank you for having me. I have you.
You know, you've been covering and following this just as much as we have. What was your reaction to the news today, and in particular, what they issued the arrest warrant on, the indictment about using a possible other debit card for other transactions? What did you make of that?
Well, the fact that they've issued an arrest warrant and they've gone as far as they have gone didn't surprise me. I know initially there was a question of why he was just a person of interest, why he wasn't a suspect. Well, especially in a federal system, a lot of times people are charged, we saw today, indicted without the public being notified of anything. While we look at the facts of this case, what we see is law enforcement indicting him, or federal government indicting him for what they feel they can prove at this time. And through this indictment, we learned that he used a credit card belonging to Gabby Petito on August 30th. And we see him using that card. And now we're going to be able to see this federal indictment being used as essentially a springboard to now arrest Brian Laundrie once they find him, bring him into custody, and because he's federally indicted now with an active arrest warrant.
You know, and Anthony, I just want to point out, because like you were mentioning, this is in no way related to the ongoing homicide investigation into Gabby Petito's death. But let's talk about, you know, what would the criminal penalty be? I mean, for using someone else's debit card. It seems minor, but is that the linchpin to possibly eventually get Brian Laundrie on other charges in the future?
Yeah, right now it's credit card fraud. It's fraudulent use of someone's personal identification, the access point being the credit card. While it's not the highest offense that you can possibly convict somebody on, it is a federal offense. And what will happen now, because he's federally indicted, let's say he's picked up, he's found and preserved where law enforcement is engaging in this massive man fund. If they find him, he'll be taken into custody, most likely brought into federal court here in Tampa, where he'll see a judge. At that point in time, the judge will most likely not allow him to bond out, and then he'll be transferred to Wyoming. Ultimately, while this is going on, they're still conducting a death investigation. They're conducting the autopsy of Gabby's body. They're looking for evidence that will directly link Brian to her death. Without something being able to be pinned upon him to stick, to allow the government to hold him in custody, essentially he can walk away. Now with a federal indictment, we know if they find him, he can't go anywhere. And law enforcement can conduct their investigation into her death simultaneous to its prosecution for using her card. And this card, although it's this use of the card, although it's an independent criminal offense, his use of that card can be linked and used against him in a prosecution for a homicide. It directly puts him in contact with Gabby's body after her death. If he's using this card, we know he had access to her prior to her death. This card, his use of this card, is going to be very important in a subsequent investigation to determine where he was at certain times, his location, and to show that he used this card without her consent after she was deceased. It's going to be evidence.
Note to self: if you murder someone, do not use their debit card.
Evidence in a homicide investigation as well as a federal charge itself.
Anthony, I want to move over the discussion to Brian Laundrie's parents. Apparently, reporters saw them today. We saw them today leaving their home there in Northport, and we saw that
shout out
silver
Norm Macdonald.
Ford Mustang as well. You know, they are, freely moving about Florida, about parts of Florida. Do you think the police will have cause to question them yet again, to go back to their home, to seize or search anything in there? What is the parents' role right now?
Well, right now we know the parents did initially tell law enforcement they were going to talk to him. Their son invoked the right to remain silent. And then miraculously, 4 days after they allegedly believe he went missing, they report him missing himself. They report him missing, and now they want to cooperate. We know they spent hours with law enforcement in conducting interviews, and we know that search warrants were executed at their home on that Mustang that we saw brought back today, on the van that was found. And if law enforcement believes additional evidence could be found in that home, they will use the fullest extent of the law to execute additional search warrants. But they've already gone in that house. We saw detectives, we saw FBI agents removing items, duffel bags, coming out with things from that home. Most likely they've completed their searches of the home. And this family now, meeting with their lawyer, is most likely talking about their rights and their obligations and if possible, if they are potential suspects or face criminal liability for anything they may have done.
And Anthony, I just want to update our viewers because there have been some more developments in addition to the arrest warrant. The city of Moab, Utah, telling Fox News today it's launching an investigation into how police handled an August incident between Gabby and Brian. And then that's that body camera footage most of us have already seen over and over and over again about their first kind of documented altercation. And as well, a Northport law firm in Florida says it's offering their own reward for information on the whereabouts of Brian Laundrie. That's the Buhoff law firm offering a $20,000 reward for the first person to supply information. You know, we've been talking so much that this is really a cross-country investigation because that they embarked on this road trip. Does that present more messy details and work for investigators since it is such a broad scene?
Without a doubt, because one of the things they have to prove, if we ultimately believe law enforcement or the government is going to try and prove that Brian committed a homicide, committed a murder. Well, the first thing they have to prove is where it occurred. Did it occur in Utah? Did it occur in Wyoming? Did he move her body? They're going to have to establish evidence that a murder occurred and where it occurred. And the fact now that essentially we have three major crime scenes. We have what happened in Utah. We have what happened in Wyoming where her body was found. And we have this massive search here in Florida. But what we see is a coordination of all different law enforcement agencies. We see the FBI working hand in hand with local law enforcement here in Florida, as well as working with law enforcement in Utah and Wyoming. And we see now the chilling effect that this case has had with the changes to the policy in Moab, where they talk about if, a lot of states, if someone reports domestic violence, usually somebody goes to jail. Somebody is separated, they're taken away, and something happens to make sure that a homicide doesn't happen in the future. As a former prosecutor, one of my fears is prosecuting cases where if you let somebody go essentially and then they go and do something. So we see Moab now changing their policies or looking at their policies to make sure that something like this may not happen again. And we see the effect this case is happening throughout the country, and it's gripped our nation.
And Anthony, I just want to reiterate the fact, let's go back to the indictment, the news of the day. Apparently the indictment does not say whose cards Laundrie allegedly used. Has that been updated? Do we know if they are Gabby Petito's credit cards?
Really, the indictment itself, and when a grand jury comes, they come in secret. So this is all fluid. I would believe that it's Gabby's credit card. Okay. Because when you look at what this is all related to, although they haven't come out and said it, when you look at the charge, it's directly related to where he was on the 30th. And understand, as we all know, when you use a credit card, there's a little camera there. So most likely, if he's using that credit card at an ATM machine, we're going to be able to see if it was him who used it. One could most likely assume, put two and two together, that it was her card he used without permission. And then you also got to look at the cell phone. We know if they know that her death occurred before the 27th, and the family's receiving these cell phone messages, these text messages, that in conjunction with his use of that credit card can all be used as evidence against him.
All right, Anthony Rickman, just offering some great expert analysis as we go into the 6th day tomorrow of the search for Brian Laundrie. It's been so long and there's been so little information provided. What are your kind of premonitions about this, just having been around the block a few times and covered cases like this? What does your gut tell you at this point?
Look, from all along, I've been looking at this case, and like we talked about, why is he a person of interest? He is the only suspect. He's the only person of interest. He was the person who went to Wyoming with Gabby. He comes home without her. We have a nationwide search where people have submitted videos, a video of a van in a very close proximity to where they find Gabby's body. We have the cell phone communications to his family, to Gabby's family. We have the van that returns, and one of the things we don't know is what evidence was actually pulled out of that van. And now, unfortunately, we have the discovery of Gabby's body. It's going to be interesting to see what exactly comes out of that autopsy, because the first thing we're going to be looking for is what her actual cause of death was. Now, what's important to note is the FBI was quick to say that the manner of death was a homicide. They didn't say it was an accident. They didn't say it was a suicide. They said it was a homicide, meaning the death was an unnatural death caused by somebody else. And now we know that somebody else, the suspect of that somebody else, is Brian Laundrie. And law enforcement conducting this search, this nationwide search for him, as well as the collection of evidence, circumstantially putting together this case. They're going to be looking for every clue or detail to link him to a crime if they find and believe a crime has occurred. And that can include any evidence around where her body was found, shoe prints, DNA samples, anything linking him to the body, his moving of the body, if that's what's alleged, any weapons that may be there. This is going to be a very interesting case and one that we're going to see play out, hopefully, when he's captured.
All right, Anthony Rickman, attorney there down in Florida and Tampa, we thank you so much for your time. We'll be definitely speaking with you again.
Great. Thank you for having me.
All right, we do.
What is this shit? There are actually 3 different times of death. The physiological time of death, legal time of death, estimated time of death. It is impossible to determine the exact time of death. So how would they know she was dead when he used the thing? They made death by it. If a serial killer killed a victim in July but the body was not discovered until October, the physiological death took place in July, but the legal death is marked as October. The medical examiner estimated the time of death could be July or it could be June or August. It's only an estimate, and many factors conspire to confuse the determination. So it's an inexact science.
Or is I don't fucking know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I came back to make fun of them when I found out about the Ark and realized how many fucking holes there are in that story.
Actually, there's no holes in the Ark, otherwise it wouldn't have floated.
Oh, Socrates, you got us. Damn.
Atheist destroyed.
Sunday school meet.
That was funny.
Yeah, you're right. It's not really holes as much as just the ship ripping apart because it's on waves that it couldn't actually,
Holding way more weight than it could ever possibly hold.
It's not about being literal, it's about a meaning to the
Well,
story.
wood is only so strong.
Some of these people are literal PMRs.
Yeah,
okay?
the people that I grew up around were like, this shit really fucking happened. And I looked in that fucking book and I saw burning bushes and talking donkeys, and I was like, what the fuck were these people on?
What's the talking donkey?
DMT.
What donkey talked?
They were on the love of Jesus Christ.
They were watching
DMT.
Shrek, probably.
What donkey talked? Why do
There is
people
a
keep saying the talking?
There is a talking
Where?
donkey. I don't remember.
Yeah, Jesus rode
I
that.
just read it the other day, Kat. It was like an angel appeared before this donkey, and the donkey like didn't move, and then this guy got mad and like beat his donkey.
Whoa, this
and then,
guy,
God
bro, it was an
spoke
angel.
through the donkey to the guy.
Oh, okay. Because I didn't remember anything about that.
I can't remember where it was.
Apparently
but yeah, I
it's
just
through
read
a
it.
burning bush.
Yeah, it's not one of the most favorite verses that pastors talk about.
I wonder
Okay.
why.
They're like,
I don't know why they would. What's the big deal about that
me.
one?
God really spoke to me this week, guys, and he really told me to share this verse with you. The
It's
donkey said,
it's in Numbers 22:28.
The donkey.
I mean, I don't know why they would like skip that one. Like that's a big deal when like
Why
staffs
don't
turn
you
into
let your
snakes
kids
and
read the
shit like
entire
that.
Bible?
I
Every
always
page.
I always got really.
Who doesn't let their kids read the Bible every page? Like churches don't tell people not to.
Well, I actually got really confused because everyone was telling me, "Oh, well, just read the New Testament. Just read the New Testament. Ignore the Old Testament. Don't read that. Read the New Testament first." I was like,
Well, the new one tells you to read the old one.
I read my books.
I was told to read the whole Bible.
Yeah, I read
in
front
order.
to back. I'm not going to just read like from the middle on. I'm not gonna pick
Well, it's
up
not a
in
book.
in Act 3. Look, the
Speaking
thing
of
is,
books,
it's a group of
You,
books.
have you ever, has
They're
anyone
all-
asked
right,
Foxy
it's a
how
group
far
of
into
books.
reading the Bible he
It's
is
a
in?
group of books, but God knew that we were going to live in a society that reads left to right, front to back, and he put that fucking Old Testament first. So
But you know it
I
wasn't
read
written
it
when
through.
people were reading left to right.
Right, because it was written by men, not
It-
God.
Right.
Well, I just want to point out that the Old Testament has all the good stories, like the serpent and the talking donkey. And what does the New Testament have, right? What does it bring to the table? There's no cool. It's like walking on water, I guess. But there's no cool metamorphoses. There's no cool magic donkeys. Like, what's going on here? The dragon got removed, right? There's no dragon now, and there could have been. That would have been cool.
But
Dragons are
what am
definitely
I
cool.
supposed to take from that? That the Old Testament doesn't apply, even though the New Testament says that the Old Testament is still a thing? Like, it's really confusing. It sends
No,
like
it says it
it sends double signals. It doesn't make sense to me.
The covenant of the Old Testament, I thought, was broken by the Council of Nicaea, which I don't think was in the New Testament, right? They just like that council appeared afterward.
But science is confusing and doesn't make sense to him, but he accepts that for some reason. But when it comes to religion, oh, now I have a new standard. Now I have a new standard. It'd be different. It's different. P. Mars, kidding. So you hanging with atheists that can't understand scripture is not going to help you. These guys sound like a bunch of D-bags. No shit, dude. What do you mean?
Only
Bible can't
sincerity
make
from
fun
us.
of anything that didn't happen up to a couple thousand years ago or recent. You can't make fun of things that was written after it.
What?
That's impossible.
No, they made fun of political figures in the Bible. This is the truth.
Oh, the actual biblical ones. Maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
but
in
not
the Bible, there are a lot of allegories that are just make like lol Trump bad. Like that's what they were doing, like the equivalent of.
Yeah.
But they weren't saying lol Trump bad. They're saying whatever dickhead is a dickhead. I don't remember specifics, but
There we go.
because we're expected to read it literally, you think that these are literal people and not allegories. But there's a shitload of allegories in the Bible.
That was my problem with it. Is that it all seems so motivated, and it seems motivated by humans. It's like humans' motivations. It's not God's motivation, because if it was God's motivation driving all of this, then I don't think it would tell the same story. I don't think that those people would have wandered around in the desert for far longer than they would have had to if they'd had God's guidance.
It should have taken about 4 days.
I don't think that all of the
4 or 5 days.
I don't think that all the different people would have written entirely different like moral codes into their different books if this was all God's
You're
guidance.
forgetting something.
The Bible isn't.
The
moral.
Christian,
The Bible
the Christian
isn't
God,
anything to do with morality, dude.
The Christian God, right, is an asshole. Of course, he guided them through the desert.
Okay, yeah,
Only half the time.
The
Only half
Christian
the
God
time.
isn't an asshole.
That
He's-
was when
Could you
he
say
was
if
an asshole.
tra-
So.
If humor
He's
is
awesome.
tragedy plus time, could you say religion is sarcasm plus time? It's like, basically the people making fun of things, and then over time that then becomes a religion as people believe the stories that were told to be joking originally.
I guess my point, Rab, is just that there are things in here that are obviously supposed to be sarcasm, and you can only get sarcasm if you have context, and the context is ripped out of most of those passages, from what I understand.
Yeah,
I agree.
why is
and
it
that makes it into a religion.
So why is it
What are
our
you
holy book?
talking about?
Why would it be the holy book that I'm
I'll go
supposed
one
to
further.
read as a 5-year-old?
Why wouldn't it be just written
Because
like board game or stereo instructions from the beginning?
It's a
like God
really
doesn't
good
know that
book.
we read instructions in really specific ways.
People
Like, why
just
would it be
refer-
flowery language at all?
It's the best book on the planet.
It's not. It's
It
No,
is.
not even close
no,
to the
that-
best book.
It's
No,
so
that
good.
crown goes to Lord of the Rings.
Terry Pratchett probably wrote the best book,
It's
and I
the
don't know which one
it's
it
the
is.
best selling. It's number one. Everyone.
Well,
loves
that's only
it.
because churches force you to have a copy of it.
You know, we don't even take when I worked at thrift stores.
Why do you deny the
that we
facts?
threw away the most was the Bible because you didn't need it. There's a million Bibles all the time.
It's funny that you can't handle the truth.
It sells
It's
the
funny
most,
that I can't
so
handle
it's
the
the best.
truth, T Mars. You fucking weirdo.
No, he could handle it. He threw it away. That was actually very well handled, right? I mean, that was very easy. He just said he handled it.
He handled it into the trash.
The free giveaway book pile would have been
admit it.
flooded out with Bibles.
Yeah.
The free book bucket.
I'm gonna go into to heretics. Anybody want to know why? I'm not gonna teach my kids Catholicism. I'm gonna go in there. I don't want to disrupt the conversation, unless you guys want to know why.
Yeah. The only reason I don't think you're letting your kids know a certain amount of certain information
Well,
is
listen,
because
they're
it
gonna
would
know
break
about
their
Jesus
faith.
Christ. We're gonna go over Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John, right?
But they can't stay children forever. Eventually,
No.
they're going to go into the world, and the way you've taught them hopefully won't be the way I think you've taught them. Which they'll find out the hard way, if it is, and
So,
it's going to destroy their worldview completely because you have kept them isolated.
Getting your worldview destroyed is fine. You survive that.
Oh yeah, it's gonna,
Everybody gets their worldview destroyed when they grow
Concrete
up.
set them up for a.
When you hit 25, everyone figures out what kind of a person
Are you
they're
done?
going to be.
All right. So I'll teach them the gospel. I'm not so sure if I'm going to go over the Old Testament as much, but I think my daughter knows a lot about the Old Testament. She knows a lot about the Old Testament already, because I live in a predominantly Jewish neighborhood. So she's read a few books that went over a lot of the angels and some of the stories in the Old Testament. So she's pretty versed in the Old Testament, right?
Do they know what evolution is? And I mean scientific evolution, the proper evolution terms. Do they know what it means?
She understands that you can never replay the temperature or the climate of times that were the times of evolution. So
but they can actually look it up. They can figure it out archaeologically, geology.
All right, just give me a second. She understands evolution. She understands that the climate of the Earth is very difficult to record. I mean, her and I
got all of it.
went
How do you
over
think
this.
we know what we know?
Can I talk for a second, dude? Come on, man. You're like older than me. You should
ahead.
understand this. All right. So basically, to try to replay the perfect time of when something mutated in this Earth. I mean, for us to try to take this climate that we are now and then just stop that in time, because that's what a lot of people do. So she does understand that the Earth changes and these things happen or whatever. We've gone over this. We've gone over a few things that she's been indoctrinated at school, like the pyramids and the Indians and stuff. We've gone over stuff like that. As far as being spiritual, religious, she's still a little too young. I think she's still a little too young for stuff like that. But we'll get into it as we get older. You know what I mean?
Eventually, they're going to be researching all this crap on their own without you, and they're going to find out exactly how the world is, and it's going to completely fuck over what you've taught them. Because if you taught them in a certain way, it will completely be destroyed by them coming of age and really.
You don't know that. There's people who go their whole lives denying shit all the time. For God 420.
Yeah, but they'll deny it, and people around them.
Well, but also you're making the assumption that they'll tell him.
It happened to me when I was a kid.
Okay, it happened to me too.
So
I don't believe the same thing as my parents.
Completely bubbled like his
but
kids.
I also didn't tell my parents until I thought they were mature enough to handle the truth of things. So everyone figured you're just. I don't know, God 420. Here's the thing, no one parents properly. He's not doing anything abusive. Who cares? They'll figure it out or they won't. I just don't understand why you are doing this weird
is abuse, outright, straight up abuse. One of the worst ones. That's almost worse than hitting them. Complete denial of.
I don't know if that's
reality.
True. I don't know if that's true.
It's worse than punching them in the face.
I don't know if that's true.
I'd rather you hit my kid than actually forcibly make him not believe the actual science. I would rather you strike him.
Wait. So
I'd rather you strike him.
Our kids thought about Santa Claus when they were younger. That was a fun little thing. We did pretend ball together. My kids
kid
did. I don't
knows
think
what Santa Claus is, but he don't believe in it.
But we live in a scientific
Well-
dictatorship.
Kimar,
at the
shut
time.
up.
But so at the time, it was just like collective pretend play, right? That's what my daughter really liked about it, is that finally everyone would do pretend play with her, and we'd all make believe on one thing, and it brought her presents, so it paid to believe in it. So like there's a
pretend,
level
yes.
Yeah.
As long
So
as it's
there's a,
pretend.
right, but she started with believing and then shifted into pretend over time. But that wasn't I don't have a problem if you want to tell kids, oh, Santa Claus did it. It doesn't seem like you're warping their worldview forever. I mean, that doesn't seem like a horrible thing. Now, when she started asking, why does Santa Claus like rich people more than poor people? It's like, well, because they deserve it. Then we start warping the worldview. But, aside from that.
I was very, very logical during my kid growing up. And yes, I did explain to them. I showed them the Bible. I let them read it.
Come on, Bart. If you don't want that thrown at you, don't throw it at other people.
I
Bart,
actually
if
handed
you don't want to be
them
called a
the Bible.
bad parent, then don't throw it at other people.
Yeah. I actually had him a Bible, and I actually took him to church. My atheist kid, I let him actually see it all, and I took him to a friggin' Catholic church as well. Let them actually sit and watch the congregation and just listen.
After he
and I sat there with him quietly, and we just sat there. And
after he brainwashed his kid that this was all evil and shit, then he let him go to church.
they deserve to know it exists.
Okay.
I also took him to other churches.
Take him to the temple?
I can't follow.
Did you take him to the temple?
It's better than making a forbidden fruit.
I didn't have access to a Jewish temple, or I would have took him to one.
Well, then I don't understand why you took them to a Catholic church. You took them to the temple first.
Because I had access to a Catholic
Well,
church.
I don't know, man.
I also took him to a Pentecostal. Let him look at that. I took him around. He
Would you
understood.
like to handle a snake? Would you
He
like to handle a
understood.
snake?
No. They just
No?
they just sat back in the pews, and we just sat there quietly and listened to the services. You know what I mean? And I told him, you shut the fuck up and listen to the service while we're in this church, because this ain't our church.
There was a bull. Oh, sorry.
We're just here for you to view the services and see what it is. Kind of get an idea.
So,
if someone asks you a question,
your idea,
It's like
though.
if someone
it's like
asks
a
them a
safari
question,
trip.
they're allowed to answer, but answer
it's like a safari.
in that church, quiet, calmly. Within the building, I told them just keep their viewpoints to themselves, in a negative, not to be disruptive. You know what I mean? Like, if someone asks you, they'll say, "Yeah, I don't actually believe. This is interesting. It's neat to watch."
Why did going around and experiencing like the different denominations or
Yeah.
even just religions, why did that have to be your choice for the child?
So they would know.
Out of-
So that they would hear, if they heard people talking about it on the street, they'd realize, oh, you know what I mean? Like they would understand.
Also because you don't want to make it the forbidden fruit, right? You don't want to make it why was
Right.
this kept from me, right?
Yeah,
So
just
no,
like
here, you wanna go
evolution.
Yeah, when my daughter went to go to, she asked if she could go to Catholic church because her friend was going. And we're like, yeah, sure, let's go. And she sat through one of them like, wow, this is insanely dull. Like, yeah, this is why we don't do this. All right.
Right. But at the same time,
Okay.
unlike I'm not going to name members, other people that would refuse to let them actually understand the sciences. Like, I know lots of Christian kids that they know for a fact evolution is definitely accurate and true, but yet at the same time they are completely devout believers, and it's probably not going to change. But they also truly believe, they understand that evolution is a fact. They don't believe in evolution, they know it's a fact.
I don't understand what those words mean together. I don't understand how you believe in a fact and not believe in it.
My daughter's probably going to
bad
marry
wording.
a
I'm
Jewish
sorry.
guy and convert. That's what's going to happen. She's going to marry a Jewish guy and convert. That's it, man. I'm perfectly okay with
But you shouldn't keep, and you shouldn't act as if it's evil with them, which I know most religious parents do.
I don't think
really
it's
degrade. They really
I don't
ignore
know
the
what
science.
the problem. I don't know what the problem is. Why is that?
Most
evil?
religion parents do what?
Like when they were to that Catholic church, I mean, they're sitting there, my son and my son's friend were sitting there mumbling, and they couldn't understand why these people didn't understand evolution. I just said they're denied access to this information.
I don't think most religious people deny evolution.
Yeah, evolution.
A lot of the
in the
preachers
religious
that was
worldview.
up on that
Yeah,
stage.
what?
I don't think that's true of most religious
you-
people. I think
you have
you're
to-
massively over.
I actually took him to my old church as well, which was a young
God
creationist
420.
church.
Viruses prove evolution. Most religious people believe in this.
Yeah, Mr. 420, you know that the museums that we have in New York, right?
Oh, I know there's lots of them.
Yeah, natural history, like the one that was in the movie.
I'd like to
You know,
walk
it goes
through all
over
those museums
of the,
myself.
humanoids. It goes over all the humanoids, right up to Homo sapiens, right? My
okay.
kids went to see this. I've taken them a few times.
Yeah. Do you understand
420,
that
you
we
know that-
actually weren't created then? You understand that we are true.
That what? That what?
You understand that
How
we are
does
not
that? How does
created.
that make sense? How does that make sense? How do
how
you
we
make
not-
that leap?
we're
How
not
do you make that logic
Doesn't
leap?
make any sense.
You understand that we aren't made. We are evolved from previous.
No, you are a burnout. Basically, you're a burnout. You just smoke too much pot.
You see what I mean?
Your head is
Room?
fried.
You see what I mean, Room? They have to resort to insults.
Atheists have to resort to evolution.
How is the
to
Yeah,
insult?
they have to
everything.
resort to insults. You don't need to do that, Bart. You really don't need to. All that
You've been
1 minute,
you just
Bart.
smoked too much
1 minute,
weed,
Bart.
you know?
No, think about it, Bart.
No,
You- as
I
soon as
thought about it
no,
plenty
just
of
1 minute.
times.
Religious
Sorry.
people. No. Religious people believe in evolution. There's not a whole lot that
A
deny
lot
it,
of them
but the
do,
ones
but
that do,
a lot of them don't.
Okay, can you provide a citation for that?
My
That a
entire
lot-
church that I went to.
That's one
Okay,
church,
that's
and you said
anecdotal.
most
That's
religious
anecdotal.
people.
That's anecdotal. Oh,
Most, it
my
could be a lot.
one church denies evolution. Good citation.
Yeah, you're just a burnout 420. That's the reason why you can't keep up with a conversation.
You believe we're evolved from
you
this?
should just listen more.
Bart, shut the fuck up. It's like you could hit above the belt. Quit being a fucking child.
I don't. It ain't hurting me. It's okay. I'm letting him do it because it just exposes it. I'll
No,
point
it's
it out.
boring. It's honestly boring. And
I don't-
human beings are
honestly-
supposed to defend people when they get hit below the belt.
I
I
don't-
don't even like
I
God
know.
420.
I don't mind him hitting below the belt because all it does is exposes the position. That's why I
I
love
just don't think that smoking weed
research,
should be.
60
I don't think that everyone who smokes weed should be considered a delinquent.
Right, but I don't care if he hits below the belt. It makes no difference.
Yeah,
to me.
but that
You would want to have an
normalizes that
We're
behavior.
constantly high on here all the time, and we have to suffer from it. So
I let.
if you want to have
420.
intelligent
I want to.
just try not
Bart,
to
you
be
don't.
shut the fuck
Fuck
down.
up. That's not the problem.
If we can't
Room.
call
Lots of people are
stoners
on here high all
delinquents,
the time.
who
and
can
you
we
talk
call a
to them all the
delinquent?
time.
Room. It's okay if he wants to judge.
Yes, but we would like to talk about the
Okay.
content of your topic and not about that.
Right. My point is, okay, God 420, shut up. I'm not defending you. My point is, it's boring and pathetic to listen to Bart insult people in general, and I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
so
that-
stop
that-
saying
that's-
we need it. We're defending you. We're just not.
Yeah, on that.
40% of people believe evolution is false. 40% of people believe that evolution is false in the United States. So there's a minority, but not that small.
Well, that's a huge amount. 40%. Because it takes less than 40% of people to win an election.
Good morning, rebels.
That's just in the U.S.
But yeah. No.
What are we arguing about?
How to
Same
teach
thing.
kids to grow up in the world, whether you should
That's right.
let them actually
No,
see truth.
I thought we're trying to make sure that we disprove evolution by getting more than 40% of people to disbelieve in it. So if we can get up to 50% of people to disbelieve in it, we now know evolution is false. So and then and I define that as the ad hominem attack. So I'm going to define that as the ad hominem attack, which is how you disprove an argument. So that's my statement. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah,
I
I
agree.
would say that as time goes on, yeah, science is going to be more and more easy to find as time goes on. It's going to be more difficult for the religious sides to hide the sciences because it's just going to be more and more clear
And I
and
was
plain.
attempting to
As they
gaslight
complete
there
all
with
these
like 8 red hair. and I was attempting to gaslight there with like 8 red herrings in a row.
Me or him?
If you think you're open-minded, are you really open-minded? Because are you open to the possibility you might be closed-minded?
Yeah.
What do you think open-minded means?
Being a little more spiritual instead of so robotic, like how 420 is trying to be. You know, there's a lot more out there than just the sciences in the world. I mean, we can all be a little more spiritual and loving in other ways.
I don't think that's what it
It
means.
just means that you're
fucking hate you,
open
Barth.
to
I
the
fucking hate you.
possibility that you will be proven wrong.
Listen, all I'm saying is there is good in the world, and it's
Oh, I know that.
and they could be looked at in so many different ways. There's so many different angles you can go by. You know, there's really nothing about science that's loving. It's kind of robotic. So, I get what he's saying, but
There's not a whole lot about a lot of religion that's very loving either.
well, that's what I mean. But there's spirituality, right? And I think
And
that's
if you say the scientists don't teach you things, think about this. I
didn't say they
tested
didn't
positive.
see things. How what? Did you just listen to what
I've
you said?
I've
Did
had
you hear
damage
what you
done to me
said?
that if it wasn't for science, I would be dead.
But did you hear what you just said?
The guy I brought back up out of the
Repeat what
woods
you just
after he
said.
wrecked his bike would be dead if it wasn't for the modern
But
science.
no, Mr. 420. Repeat what you just said.
If I prayed over him where he wrecked his bike, he'd be dead
Okay,
now.
you don't even
I
remember
took
what
him
you
to a
said.
hospital. He's alive.
I don't even remember what you said. Can you just tell me what you said to start this conversation? To start what you just tell me what you just said. Say it over.
If I can remember completely because of all the
You see what I mean? So
Yeah, it's short-term memory loss.
Yes, I do have that. I know that. The 5-minute
Yeah,
memory
that's
thing,
not a
10-minute
problem.
memory. Yeah, it's fucked up. I know that.
Yeah,
I understand that.
But you said sciences can teach you something.
Yes.
I mean, really? So does that need to be said in this type of conversation in this setting?
Hey, science taught me how to protect stuff.
Unbelievable.
Science taught me how to protect stuff from the wind. Science taught me how to avoid lightning strikes blowing my electronics out. Science taught me how to make irrigation for the fields. Taught me about
How to live. It sounds pretty loving to me, in my opinion.
I was hearing about that Baha'i stuff yesterday. There was a guy on here discussing the Baha'i religion. I can tell you, I kind of liked it. That was a new, like, probably the most pleasant religion I've ever heard of. So, I'm sort of in favor of that one. I'm not sure if there's what the downsides are yet, but that seems like a religion to get behind. I like that one.
Tell me more of these science miracles.
I mean, yeah, but for the life of me, I can't understand how
Did anyone say the word miracle before you?
this
I
is
never
this
say
is allowed.
miracle because that's nonsense to me.
Oh no. A bad religious word.
I mean, this is sad.
People can be in the right place at the right time.
It's just a sad display.
was.
What we have to go through when I'm speaking to this gentleman.
Yeah.
And I honestly starting to feel bad.
You're the one inflicting it, though. You're the look.
I'm not.
You could've-
I'm not. It's
no,
just-
no,
it's-
no. Hold
it's just
on.
bad.
Let me finish. You could have just said, "Hey, remember when you said this?" And then he would have remembered, and then you could have just gone on with the conversation. But instead, you let him into a trap and tried to essentially gaslight him for not remembering every single word that he said, which is kind of manipulative.
That's not gaslighting.
I don't mind him
I
using
I repeated what he said.
This is
I
gish
repeated what
galloping.
he
That's
said.
gish galloping him.
Saying that he said something that he didn't.
I
I don't
repeated
mind.
what-
I don't
exactly
care if
what
he
said.
gaslights me, because all it does is it exposes the gaslighting to the rest of the room.
That wasn't
God.
gaslighting.
Two
It's
other
not that-
people have to start talking.
Yeah, it was gish galloping. It was gish galloping.
No, I was just trying to make him understand the fact that when he has conversations like this, he doesn't even know what he's saying half the time, and it's not fair to the rest of the room.
Bart, shut
Garth,
the
can you
fuck
just-
up.
can
You
you just clarify?
constantly walk into a room and just declare the most stupid shit you could possibly think of repeatedly. Your bad behavior is constant. So you like pointing at God 420, who's having a reasonable conversation, or at least trying to, and then saying that that's the same thing as you. Fuck off, dude. You fucking little weirdo.
I don't I don't understand. I don't understand how using like the fact that someone doesn't remember something to try to convince them that they're stupid isn't gaslighting. That
Yeah,
seems
short-term memory-
straightforwardly you are manipulating them to try to think differently or remember differently, like what happened. You're trying to
He's trying to
manipulate
trying to
what
remind
they
them
feel about themselves. I mean, if it's not gaslighting, it's pretty close to the mark.
Well, he's
What if
not.
you're trying to
Bart's
remind them
fully
of
aware
what?
of my
He's
short-term
just-
memory.
he's
Bart's
just hitting
completely
me-
aware
move on
that
from the
he
meta
tries to
here?
do it all
Yeah,
the
I'd
time.
love to. My point is just Bart keeps dragging it back to that shit, and I don't want to talk about parenting either, frankly. So anything would be better than what we were talking about.
Well, I'm curious about Bart's. You talked about how science isn't loving, and I was kind of curious about that point, which I think was before everything got derailed. Barth, is that correct? You were talking about how science isn't loving, and that's a problem for science, or am I misunderstanding?
Oh no, it's just like I said, it's
It's not
just
loving, it's
study-
robotic.
It's about
It's the
efficiency,
study of-
not
it's the
about
study of-
humanity.
Yeah, it's the study of nature, which can be beautiful in itself. As we observe it, watching the water crashing into the beach, hearing the crickets at night. I mean, that's beautiful.
Now, can you explain
But
how the
that's not-
waves?
Well, it's an interesting criticism because depending on the religious person you're talking to, you'll hear critiques about people evaluating reality and what the truth of things are, and their emotions getting wrapped up in it. And they'll accuse people of doing that, which is interesting because science is a study, a method that tries to remove cognitive bias and emotions from the process and operate from pure parameters. So it seems like there's people on both sides and that like to eschew emotion in order to get to a truth. So Bart, I think your criticism that science is cold and religion is human and warm, I don't think that necessarily applies to everybody on either side.
And also, a lot of people get really emotional about scientific discoveries too. Like if you think about the Muslims,
absolutely.
you're going to feel one way or the other about it. So
You mean furries?
no one likes PMRs.
Where the hell did furries come into this?
Let me ask my wife if she ever cried during a chemistry test. Hold on 1 second.
Oh my god.
Have you ever
I've
gotten
cried during a
emotional,
chemistry. Is
when
chemistry
you're doing
the
biology, babe?
So Bart is now saying that if you get emotional about a scientific discovery, especially if you're involved in it, right, that it's irrelevant, even though this fucking weirdo gets emotional about his kids every other fucking day.
Yeah, talk to Eastern Orthodox
What a
people, and
dumb
they would
fuck
criticize
you are.
Bart for being emotional about talking about his beliefs.
Yeah,
That's true.
fuck him.
They would.
Like, can we just toilet this bitch?
Tear him
Like,
a
I can't
strip.
stand this fucking little troll.
Emotions are lame.
He's a duplicitous piece
Getting
of
spicy.
shit.
Getting spicy in here.
Wow,
I'd
just
say
Bart's
probably
worthless.
about-
Like engaging in conversation with him is just like fucking pointless.
Well, I'd say in about a decade, he's going to find out the hard way just how, because it worked, when my kids hit, time to move out on their own, I'm a kid. But yeah.
What?
They figured out that the world is not quite the way that a lot of people around them said it was. And that's usually worse for someone that is held away from really understanding the sciences and stuff. It's really bad for them when they get out into the world. They hit college and so on. They find out the worldviews aren't right.
Yeah, it's so bad.
So I really will feel sorry for Bart's kids when that happens. My heart goes out to those kids.
I think it's just more that science has been able to answer those previous
Yes.
unanswerable questions
That's
now compared to earlier in human history.
Yeah, and nowadays, and in another 10 years, it's going to be even easier to answer them. Because science does not stop. It just keeps going forever.
And to me, that's what makes science loving and not unloving.
Yeah, if we still have decent civilization 500 years from now, science will still be advancing then. Unless we destroy ourselves.
How do you define love? Just progress is love?
Isn't science supposed to be neutral?
Science is just a process. I don't know if I call it loving
ends
or
up
not.
it ends up coming to beneficial conclusions or the truth.
I don't think science is necessarily beneficial. I think science is neutral.
Yeah, I mean, it's not about the truth either. Science is much more about falsification of bad
So is a
hypotheses.
scientific advancement not beneficial?
Scientific advancement brings like nuclear bombs that kills people as much as it brings like medical advancement. I mean, science brings like thalidomide.
It develops nuclear energy. It's just how
Yeah.
we use the discovery. That's
Yeah,
not
exactly. That's why it's
science
neutral.
being unloving. That's a person being unloving with the knowledge.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I'm saying science is neutral. It can be used in negative or positive ways. Science is literally neutral.
I think the Japanese proved that in China during the Second
But
World War.
it's a
I see what
progression.
you're saying. Yeah,
of
I
it.
can concede my point. That makes sense. Yeah,
It's
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, but in that way, but it's still just a progression of like knowledge and information. Like
Yeah. The way I think of science is it's the best approximation we can have to describing the physical world around us.
You would.
Yeah, I think that's not a bad way to look at science.
I think.
Yeah, like I would say an individual scientist using science to solve a problem is a loving endeavor. However, he should be using that science unbiasedly. Like he shouldn't have a bias while doing his experiments. I see where you're going.
I would be fascinated to know what you think love is.
I'm kind of curious how loving got into the equation at all. I'm just not sure why it's relevant to science specifically.
Well, someone made the claim that science is unloving.
It's inhuman.
Well, love is merely putting someone else's needs and before your own, and as part of a duty of care.
Bart was incredulously saying he's not going to just teach his kids science because it's cold and pointless or whatever.
Well, yeah,
he might
I
not have
think
said pointless. I think maybe I just thought he was pointless.
I think just teaching anyone's subject. I think science without a certain level of understanding of history is kind of a bit silly. Science without the ability to read and write English is kind of a bit silly. There are a whole lot of things that I think that are foundational or come before or can come after science that helps to a well-rounded view of the world as best as we can get it.
I think it's very important to teach science is neutral because you have to understand that, chemicals are neutral, and we have to understand like that they're, like when you're teaching about like medicine or drugs, that sort of thing, we have to understand that these are neutral things and that how we apply them is what's important, that we have to control them as neutral things.
But it's used mostly for evil.
I feel like that'd be hard to demonstrate as a general statement.
What I said?
Yeah, just the idea that it's caused more harm overall than not. I feel like that'd be difficult to.
Evil. I would disagree as well.
There's like books about the topic.
I'm not saying there's not arguments that can be had. I'm just saying it'd be difficult, especially when people probably think the opposite, because they probably bring up a few examples. You'd bring up a few examples, and I feel like it'd be difficult to make a definitive statement either way, personally.
I think it's self-evidently obvious that it's more evil than good.
No, it's a tool. It's the same way as I can use a hammer to bash in a nail, or I can hammer to cave in your skull.
But it's used for evil more than good. It does more harm than good.
Now you might be getting on that. That's probably a better starting point to an argument for that.
That's what I said.
Because
that's what I said.
If I misheard you, I apologize, P. Mars. I do apologize.
Don't apologize to P. Mars.
Well, I can only be responsible for my action and inaction.
Well, he's a dirt person, so who cares about
I've known P. Mars for a very long time.
Oh, I feel bad for you. I'm sorry.
Well, I won't say no. That's probably an overstatement. I've had dialogue with him over a fairly long period of time. But I always think that, I haven't spoken to him in a while, and I always put the counter back to 0 because people change. I might have an argument with someone someday, be friendly with them the next, have an argument with them the next day, and fuck them up. Just depends on the circumstances. What I try to do is not.
That's very Christian of you.
I'm a pagan. I've got proper morals, mate.
Hey. Balance.
Because I think turning the other cheek on occasions is evil.
Well, I think that gets misinterpreted. I would agree with the way people interpret it. Yeah, I think that's stupid. But there's a part in the Bible that says you shouldn't keep a list of right and wrongs people, or a list of wrongs people did. Like that's not love to keep keep throwing in. Remember a month ago when you did this? That's messed up to do to people.
Which is why, and I kind of agree with that, because I think, we all say silly things, and we all can be in a bad place, or someone we feel has provoked us and we'll react. Yeah, and you can carry that forward, or you can say, well, I'll treat you as you treat me until you prove you're otherwise. And then I'm always cool with that. And let's face it, you have tried to provoke me a lot in the past, PMAS, but that's the past, and that's where it shall stay.
You were like
both for the person.
I'm not going to get shamed for recognizing a pattern of behavior, by the way. I'm recognizing a pattern of behavior. P. Mars's pattern of behavior. Bad. He is a dirt person. His feelings don't matter.
I agree. I'm a wretch.
Are you not all falling short of the standards of your God, P. Mars?
Yeah, we're all sinners, but I try my best. I've been learning about. I just became a Christian like a year ago, so I've been doing my best,
Because the lazy way to deal with an argument is just to insult somebody. That's what I think. And hell, I debate flat earthers, so it's difficult.
I like insulting people. I don't.
Yeah, I think people who are anonymous on the internet get a little bit gung ho with being insulting when somebody says something that they find to be objectionable.
Well, I had to mute because my phone rang.
I just think that I treat people on the internet the same as I try to treat people on the internet the same as if I speak to them face to face. That's how I try and work. Won't say I'm always successful, but that's what I try. That's my intent.
I actually feel like being on the internet talking to people makes me less likely to react that way to objection. Makes me more open-minded compared to in person. That's just me, though.
Well, Discord has been helping me get better at interacting with people in reality.
Oh shit! Got a rock and roll. Catch you guys later.
What was that?
Got a rock and roll. I want to read my book. I need a light. I need a lamp here. I should go get a lamp today. So I can read here. What's up, babe? Hi. Yeah? Yeah? Good boy? Hi. What you doing? What? Good boy. You purring? Do you want to read the book with me? What are you purring? Hi. Think I'm gonna give you food? The Bible. So the Bible does not require certain behavior and morals taught by the Bible. Thanks for cleaning that up. There's no like fixed duty in Christianity. We have freedom, but it's freedom through love. We have to love God and love each other. What are you doing, Gibby? What are you doing? What's gotten into you?
Hello.
Why are you so happy?
I'm so mad you don't even understand, my guy.
drugs.
What? What? What's your name? Mars? What the fuck are you doing?
Boy. Good boy.
What?
He's printing like crazy. What's up, baby? Hi.
Are you... are you speaking to an animal?
What's up? Hold on, I gotta get my head. You're not old enough. You're underage, aren't you?
Are you talking to me? Because I am not.
You're not?
Yeah.
Oh. I was just gonna read a book.
No, I need to, what is it called? Vent.
Vent? About what?
Have you seen Squid Game or that shit? Squid Game?
No.
I legit cannot watch TikTok anymore because if I look at something, it's just full of that shit, and then like it's just spoilers. So I already know how it ends. But I started watching it, and then I'm just like, I legit cannot use TikTok now. That's all I have to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it still banned to download TikTok?
Was it ever banned?
In America, I guess you're not American.
I don't think it was because like what is that motherfucker's name?
Trump?
Microsoft guy? Nah,
Bill
he bought
Gates.
it, didn't he? Yeah.
I don't know. I thought it was like Chinese, so that Trump said he banned
Yeah,
it.
but who bought TikTok? Okay. Dun, 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 dun. It was bought by ByteDance. My bad.
Are you Christian?
I want to talk about religion.
Cat! Hey!
What the fuck?
Oh my god. Cat.
Oh, dude, don't fucking talk shit to cats.
Naughty. That's naughty. Stop. Naughty. You're naughty. Why are you so naughty? You go be naughty in here. Mic check. Okay, it's still. Stupid cat, man. It's gonna break my shit. chat. God.
On. P. Morris.
What? I'm reading the Technological Society.
What?
Chapter 1, Techniques. No social, human, or spiritual fact is so important as the fact of technique in the modern world. And yet, no subject is so little understood. Let us try to set up some guideposts to situate the technical phenomenon. Situating the technical phenomenon. Machines and technique. Whenever we see the word technology or technique, we automatically think of machines. Indeed, we commonly think of... I've already read a lot of this part. I lost my fucking spot in this. Where did I want... Whatever, I'll just keep going. Whatever, maybe I just start over. This notion, which is in fact an error, is found, for example, in the works of Oldham and Pierre Ducasse. It arises from the fact that the machine is most obvious, massive, and impressive example of technique, and historically the first. What is called the history of technique usually amounts to no more than a history of the machine. This very formulation is an example of the habit of intellectuals of regarding forms of the present as identical with those of the past. Technique...
Is it work?
What?
Is it like work or study? What are you studying?
No, I'm just doing this for fun.
For fun?
Yeah.
No, man. You're crazy.
Technique certainly began with the machine. It is quite true that all the rest developed out of mechanics. It is quite true also that without the machine, the world of technique would not exist. But to explain the situation in this way does not at all legitimize it. It is a mistake to continue with this confusion of terms, the more so because it leads to the idea that because the machine is at the origin and center of the technical problem, one is dealing with the whole problem when one deals with the machine. And that is a greater mistake still. Technique has now become almost completely independent of the machine, which has lagged far behind its offspring. It must be emphasized that, at present, technique is applied outside industrial life. The growth of its power today has no relation to the growing use of the machine. The balance seems rather to have shifted to the other side. It is the machine which is now entirely dependent upon technique, and the machine represents only a small part of technique. Oh man, we should go over the definition of technique. Like, what is the definition of technique? When he's talking about technique, he's talking about like all of the okay, here it is. The term technique as I use it does not mean machines, technology, or this or that procedure for attaining an end. In our technological society, technique is the totality of methods rationally arrived at and having absolute efficiency in every field of human activity. Its characteristics are new. The technique of the present has no common measure with that of the past. Technique is like basically the methods which we employ to like make the economy efficient, basically, is what he's saying. Or education efficient, or science efficient, or the workplace more efficient, or whatever. It's whatever method we rationally arrive at through, like, I guess, through like scientific means. The totality of methods, scientific methods. It wouldn't be scientific methods. It'd be methods that, I guess, rationally arrived at, that we get from science. It means rationally arrived at. The methods we get from science. And having absolute efficiency in every human activity. Alright, 1 second.
Hello?
What? What?
Why is your name P. Mars?
Because it's my real name.
Yeah. Cool name, bro.
Thanks.
What?
Thank you.
You're welcome. I mean, is your first name P? Or is it like a abbreviation?
It's Patrick.
Oh, like Patrick Star, but you're Patrick Mars. That's so cute. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Has anybody told you that?
Yes. I never watched SpongeBob though. I'm old.
What the fuck? How old are you?
I'm 39.
No.
No,
you're not.
I look young though.
I think you've told me this. I mean, I don't really know you, but you've definitely brought this up.
Yeah, I look 30 though.
So what the fuck? Are you white?
Yep. Are you?
Yes. Unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
Everyone. Yeah. I don't have privilege though. I'm European.
Euro trash. Are you Eastern European? Trash.
Oh my god. You calling... What the fuck? An American is calling a European trash? Hello? What the fuck are you talking about?
This is a joke.
It better be. I mean, I do think, and this is not a joke, that the US is trash, so.
Well, are you like in a European country?
What?
Are you from a European country?
Yeah.
Like what, Britain or like what?
Oh, do I fucking sound British? The fuck?
Well, Australia.
I don't even sound Australian. I'm Russian.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it's so much better there, right?
But it's better than in the US. You know? No, actually it's not. I don't even know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's not.
No.
You know, the at least you're not falling apart as fast as London, the UK actually.
I'm not going to the UK. The UK is like legitimately the equivalent of the US and Europe.
Well, they're melting.
They're what?
They're melting because they lost all the trades when they left the European Union.
Mm.
So like their stores literally look like COVID, you know? Like there's
The
nothing in there.
stores?
Yeah, they're running out of food.
They can still trade, but they're gonna need like a trading license. Oh,
There we go. I don't want to talk about fucking countries. Give a fuck. Okay. It must be emphasized that at present, technique is applied outside industrial life. The growth of its power today has no relation to the growing use of the machine. The balance seems rather to have shifted to the other side. It is the machine which now entirely it is the machine which is now entirely dependent upon technique, and the machine represents only a small part of technique. If we were to characterize the relations between technique and the machine today, we could say not only that the machine is the result of a certain technique, but also that its social and economic applications are made possible by other technical advances. The machine is now not even the most important aspect of technique, though it is perhaps the most spectacular. Technique has taken over all man's activities, not just his productive activity. From another point of view, however, the machine is deeply symptomatic. It represents the ideal toward which technique strives. The machine is solely, exclusively technique. It is pure technique, one might say. For whatever a technical factor exists, it results almost inevitably in mechanization. Technique transforms everything it touches into a machine. Another relationship exists between technique and the machine, and this relationship penetrates the very core of the problem of our civilization. It is said, and everyone agrees, that the machine has created an inhuman atmosphere. The machine, so characteristic of the 19th century, made an abrupt entrance into society which, from the political, institutional, and human points of view, was not made to receive it, and man has had to put up with it as best he can. Men now live in conditions that are less than human. Consider the concentration of our great cities, the slums, the lack of space, of air, of time, the gloomy streets, and the swallow lights that confuse night and day. Think of our dehumanized factories, our unsatisfied senses, our working women, our estrangement from nature. Life in such an environment has no meaning. Consider our public transportation, in which man is less important than a parcel. Our hospitals, in which he is only a number. Yet we call this progress. And the noise, that monster boring into us at every hour of the night without respite. It is useless to rail against capitalism. Capitalism did not create our world. The machine did. Painstaking studies designed to prove the contrary have buried the obvious beneath tons of print. And if we do not wish to play the demagogue, we must point out that the guilty party, the machine, is antisocial. Or we must point out the guilty party. The machine is antisocial, says Lewis Mumford. It tends, by reason of its progressive character, to the most acute forms of human exploitation. The machine took its place in a social milieu that was not made for it, and for that reason created the inhuman society in which we live. Capitalism was therefore only one aspect of the deep disorder of the 19th century. To restore order, it was necessary to question all the basis of that society, its social and political structures, its art and its way of life, its commercial system. But let the machine have its head, and it topples everything that cannot support its enormous weight. Thus, everything had to be reconsidered in terms of the machine. And that is precisely the role technique plays. In all fields, it made an inventory of what it could use, of everything that could be brought into line with the machine. The machine could not integrate itself into 19th century society. Technique integrated it. Old houses that were not suited to the workers were torn down, and the new world technique required was built in their place. Technique has enough of the mechanical in its nature to enable it to cope with the machine, but it surpasses and transcends the machine because it remains in close touch with the human order. The metal monster could not go on forever torturing mankind. It found in technique a rule as hard and inflexible as itself. Technique integrates the machine into society. It constructs the kind of world the machine needs in order and constructs the kind of world the machine needs and introduces order where the incoherent banging of machinery heaped up ruins. It clarifies, arranges, and rationalizes. It does in the domain of the abstract what the machine did in the domain of labor. It is efficient and brings efficiency to everything. Moreover, technique is sparing in the use of the machine, which has traditionally been exploited to conceal defects of organization. Machines sanctioned social inefficiency, says Mumford. Technique, on the other hand, leads to a more rational and less indiscriminate use of machines. It places machines exactly where they ought to be and requires of them just what they ought to do. This brings us to two contrasting forms of social growth. Henry Gudden says, social growth was formerly reflexive or instinctive, that is to say, unconscious, but new circumstances, the machine, now compel us to recognize a kind of social development that is rational, intelligent, and conscious. We may ask ourselves whether this is the beginning not only of the era of a spatially finite world, but also of the era of a conscious world. All-embracing technique is in fact the consciousness of the mechanized world. Technique integrates everything. It avoids shock and sensational events. Man is not adapted to a world of steel. Technique adapts him to it. It changes the arrangement of his blind world so that man can be a part of it without colliding with its rough edges, without the anguish of being delivered up to the inhuman. Technique thus provides a model. It specifies attitudes that are valid once and for all. The anxiety aroused in man by the turbulence of the machine is soothed by the consoling hum of a unified society. As long as technique was represented exclusively by the machine, it was possible to speak of man and the machine. The machine remained an external object, and man, though significantly influenced by it in his professional, private, and psychic life, remained none the less independent. He was in a position to assert himself apart from the machine. He was able to adopt a position with respect to it. But when technique enters into every area of life, including the human, it ceases to be external to man and becomes his very substance. It is no longer face to face with man, but it is integrated with him, and it progressively absorbs him. In this respect, technique is radically different from the machine. This transformation, so obvious in modern society, is the result of the fact that technique has become autonomous. When I state that technique leads to mechanization, I am not referring to the simple fact of human adaptation to the machine. Of course, such process of adaptation exists, but it is caused by the action of the machine. When we are concerned, what we are concerned with here, however, is a kind of mechanization in itself. If we may ascribe to the machine a superior form of know-how, the mechanization which results from technique is the application of this higher form to all domains hereto foreign to the machine. We can even say that technique is characteristic of precisely that realm in which the machine itself can play no role. It is a radical error to think of technique and machine as interchangeable. From the very beginning, we must be on guard against this misconception. Science and technique. Almost immediately, we come up against a second problem. It is true that it is another pons asinorum. One hesitates even to mention it since the question has been so often discussed. The relation between science and technique is a standard subject for graduate thesis in all the trappings of 19th century experimental science. Everyone has been taught that technique is an application of science, more particularly, science being pure speculation. Technique figures as the point of contact between material reality and the scientific formula. But it also appears as the practical product, the application of the formulas to practical life. This traditional view is radically false. It takes into account only a single category of science and only a short period of time. It is true only for the physical sciences and for the 19th century. It is not possible, therefore, to base general study on it, nor, as we are attempting to do here, an up-to-date review of the situation. A few simple remarks suffice to destroy our confidence in these views. Historically, technique Greek science. Thus, historically speaking, the relationship between science and technique ought to be reversed. However, technique began to develop and extend itself only after science appeared. To progress, technique had to wait for science. Bertrand Gill has rightfully said, in this historical perspective, technique, by means of repeated experiments, posed the problems, derived general notions and the four primary elements, but it had to wait for the solutions, which science provided. In the present era, the most casual inspection reveals an entirely different relationship. In every instance, it is clear that the border between technical activity and scientific activity is not at all sharply defined. When we speak of technique in historical science, we mean a certain kind of preparatory work, textual research, reading, collation, study of monuments, criticism, and exegesis. These represent an ensemble of technical operations which aim first at interpretation and then at historical synthesis. The true work of science. Here again, technique comes first. Even in physics, in certain instances, technique precedes science. The best known example is the steam engine, a pure achievement of experimental genius. The sequence of inventions and improvements of Solon Descartes, Christian Huygens, Denis Papin, Thomas Savery, and so on, rest on practical trial and error. The scientific explanation of the various phenomena involved was too much. The scientific explanation of the various phenomena involved was to come much later. After a lapse of 2 centuries, and even then it was not easy to formulate. There is still no automatic link between science and technique. The relation is not that simple. There is more and more interaction between them. Today, all scientific research presupposes enormous technical preparation, as for example in atomic research. and very often it is some technical modification which allows further scientific progress. When the technical means do not exist, science does not advance. Michael Faraday was aware of the most recent discoveries concerning the constitution of the matter, but was unable to formulate precise theories because techniques for the production of vacua did not yet exist. Scientific results had to await high vacuum techniques. The medical value of penicillin was discovered in 1912 by a French physician, but he had no technical means of producing and conserving penicillin. Misgivings therefore arose about the discovery and led to its eventual abandonment. The majority of investigators in a laboratory are technicians who perform tasks far removed from what is commonly imagined to be scientific work. The research worker is no longer a solitary genius. As Robert Young says, he works as a member of a team and is willing to give up his freedom of research as well as personal recognition in exchange for the assistance and equipment of a great laboratory offers him. These two things are the indispensable conditions without which he cannot even dream of realizing his projects. Pure science seems to be yielding its place to an applied science, which now and again reaches a brilliant peak from which new technical research becomes possible. Conversely, certain technical modifications in airplanes, for instance, which may seem simple and mechanical, presuppose complex scientific work. The problem of researching supersonic velocities is one. The considered opinion of Norbert Wiener is that the younger generation of research workers in the United States consists primarily of technicians who are unable to do research at all without the help of machines, large teams of men, and enormous amounts of money. The relation between science and technique becomes even less clear when we consider the newer fields, which have no boundaries. Where does biological technique begin and where does it end? In modern psychology and sociology, what can we call technique? Since in modern psychology and sociology, what can we call technique? Since in the application of these sciences, everything is technique. But it's not the application which characterizes technique, for without technique, science has no way of existing. If we disown technique, we abandon the domain of science and enter into that of hypothesis and theory. In political economy, despite the recent efforts of economists to distinguish the boundaries between science and economic technique, we shall demonstrate that it is economic technique which forms the very substance of economic thought. The established foundations have indeed been shaken, but the problem of these relations in view of the enormity of the technical world and the reduction of the scientific would seem to be an academic problem of interest only to philosophers, speculation without content. Today, it is no longer the frontiers of science which are at issue, but the frontiers of man, and the technical phenomenon is much more significant with regard to the human situation than with regard to the scientific. It is no longer in reference to science that technique must be defined. We need not pursue philosophy of science here, or establish, ideally or intellectually, what may be the relations between action and science. What we must do is look about us and note certain obvious things which seem to escape the all too intelligent philosophers. It is not a question of minimizing the importance of scientific activity, but of recognizing that, in fact, scientific activity has been superseded by technical activity to such a degree that we can no longer conceive of science without its technical outcome. As Charles K. Michael has observed, the two are closer than ever before. The very fact that technique advances with great rapidity demands a corresponding scientific advance and sets off a general acceleration. Moreover, techniques are always put to immediate use. The interval which traditionally separates a scientific discovery and its application in everyday life has been progressively shortened. As soon as a discovery is made, a concrete application is sought. Capital becomes interested, or the state, and the discovery enters the public domain before anyone has had a chance to reckon all the consequences or to recognize its full import. The scientist might act more prudently. He might even be afraid to launch his carefully calculated laboratory findings into the world. But how can he resist the pressure of the facts? How can he resist the pressure of money? How is he to resist success, publicity, public acclaim, or the general state of mind which makes technical application of the last word? How is he to resist the desire to pursue his research? Such is the dilemma of the researcher today. Either he allows his findings to be technologically applied, or he is forced to break off his research. Wait, I read this wrong. Such is the drama of the atomic physicist who saw that only the laboratories at Los Alamos could provide them with the technical instruments necessary to the continuation of their work. The state then exercises a very real monopoly, and the scientist is obliged to accept its conditions. As one of the atomic scientists put it, "What keeps me here is the possibility of using for my work a special microscope which exists nowhere else." Jung. That's cited to Jung. The scientist is no longer able to hold out. Even science, especially the magnificent science of our own day, has become an element of technique, a mere means. There we have indeed the final word. Science has become an instrument of technique. Later we shall consider how it has come about that scientific utilitarianism has gained such momentum from technique that a disinterested piece of research is no longer possible. It has always been necessary to have a scientific substructure, but today it is scarcely possible to effect a separation between scientific and technical research. Indeed, our omnivorous technique, and this represents in part Einstein's thought, fuck Einstein, may in the end make science sterile. I shall often use the term technique in place of the more commonly used term science, and designate as techniques work that is usually termed scientific. This is due to the close association of technique and science, which I have pointed out, and which I shall discuss more fully later on. Yeah, my voice is starting to hurt, so I'm gonna stop.
And all sorts of stuff that can happen, right? Like some troll comes in and then you have to like go.
People not like the Bible being changed.
We have to come up with a name
God.
for these people,
You
right?
got him there.
We have to come up with a name for these people because they're constantly talking about the Bible. Like any sort of discussion they have, they talk about the Bible instead of talking about their atheistic worldview.
Just because they live in a God world, Buff.
Yeah,
Live in a God world.
they just hate God that much that they've been indoctrinated. They're almost, you know what they're almost like? They're almost like those people that leave like the Amish communities or like the Hasidic Jewish communities, and it's so hard for them to kick those habits that they've had their whole lives that they can't not talk about it.
Exactly.
Like they're so indoctrinated.
Exactly.
Is there a term for that, Kat?
PTSD.
People, yeah, PTSD.
Brainwashed, right? They're like brainwashed.
No, I think they're seriously traumatized. They're like,
Yeah,
they
I
can't
think
let
so.
go of it. Yeah.
God 420 is another one. Oh my
yeah,
God.
big time.
See, like I don't necessarily have anything against any of them, including God 420.
Oh, I do.
Of course, but of course, there's times where God 420 is not really saying much of anything. He's just kind of wants to hear the sound of his own voice. But as for like the positions they take, I can't really argue with them. Of course, you guys can. But from my perspective, I don't really argue with that.
God 420 was
I
talking
argue with
today. He was like, "Oh, I let my son go to a church and see for himself because I'm open-minded, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, right. You probably like brainwashed your kid for years that like religion was evil, and then you're like, oh, here, go to this church and decide for yourself when you've already like indoctrinated him into your worldview." But
My atheist son. You heard him say my atheist son.
Yep.
Yeah, he totally
This is what they
indoctrinated
do,
him to
man.
atheism, and then like takes him to a church one day. That's supposed to like give him a chance to see the other point of view. Like that's insane.
Right.
Now, when you're
Everybody
saying
indoctrinates their children. Come on.
That's a part of
not
growing up.
necessarily, right?
Yeah,
everybody
necessarily.
indoctrinates their children. It's part of having children.
Are you talking specifically about religious belief?
No, everybody.
Indoctrination.
No, all people indoctrinate their children, whether you're religious or not. It's part of having children.
There are beliefs, and you do teach your children things that you believe. I would assume, but
Yeah.
indoctrination, in terms of talking about religion.
Santa Claus is a form of indoctrination.
I don't understand how someone could be.
My atheist
Unless
father
they're
indoctrinated me as much as my religious mother. They both indoctrinated me with their beliefs.
Just a part about growing up, man. You get indoctrinated, you can.
Yeah, when I left my parents' house and I went to college, I had to unindoctrinate myself with my mother's belief system as well as my father's belief system and find my own belief system. That happens with everyone.
Actually, I think it's
so if we're using the archaic definition, like probably because it's teaching and instruction, but as for the more recent definition, the process of teaching
atheists use
the process of teaching a person or group to accept a set of beliefs uncritically, and I'm just going to say that personally, even though it's just anecdotal, there was no indoctrination in terms of uncritical belief.
Bullshit.
Your parents never told you about Santa Claus?
You're bullshit.
I mean, if you're talking about like being in a cult or something like that, that's completely different.
Right,
but if you're just talking about generally like going to a church versus like, you know, a normal church. I mean, if you're talking about going into like a cult atmosphere, that's different than just going to a church.
Completely.
Where you have access to like a regular school, you know, you have like that kind of thing. But every parent teaches their children to believe them.
Yeah, but it's about whether or not it's critically or uncritically.
Yeah,
right?
What happens when you question your parents' bullshit? They go, "As long as you're under my roof, you follow my rules." That's fucking.
Yep.
How some
Accept what I
parents
say without critical thinking.
Yeah, some parents do that. I'm not saying that all parents do that.
Oh my
You
God.
are the one
All
saying that
parents
all
do that.
parents do that.
All parents do that, bro.
They do.
I disagree.
Well, you're wrong.
At wait. At what age do you think a child understands, hey, I can rationally think about whatever my parents told me?
Probably like 15, 16.
Okay, so 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, all the way down to about when they were just learning how to talk, they was indoctrinated, bro.
No, because it's not. It's not uncritically. If a kid like kids always ask questions, a lot of questions. So if you have a kid asking a question about the belief and the parent then goes, "Just believe it," that's indoctrination. Whereas if I ask,
Yes,
or whereas if
parents
the
do
kid
that.
asks, "Why should I believe in Santa Claus or evolution?" More more
Yeah,
understandably.
why you should believe not to run in the street with moving cars? Yeah,
Right, you
that's
can explain
indoctrination.
it.
Yeah,
You can explain
yeah,
it. Therefore,
Yeah, and I was
exactly.
explained it
Yeah.
too. I was explained it too. I mean, I was brought up in a house where my mother said I wouldn't do anything unless she explained to me why. I mean, I was brought up in a house that believed in evolution, and I went to Sunday school, both. But I was still indoctrinated.
Yeah, that's
what
perfectly fine.
beliefs that were given to you by your atheist father would you believe you were forced to take or uncritically take?
What kind of question is that? I'm kind of puzzled.
It's not a puzzle. I'm asking Kat. She said her father, atheist father, indoctrinated her into atheism. I'm asking, what was
Not
she for?
not atheism. I'm not saying I was indoctrinated into atheism. I'm just saying that parents put their values on you.
Okay. Yeah.
They
No,
put their
and I
beliefs and
agree
values
that,
on you.
as I said before, like if we're going off the archaic definition, 100%, parents do teach or instruct their children, but
And I
it's
don't agree with the
with the
same things my
qualifier.
father believed
Right.
anymore. My
I
father
understand
was
that. That's
homophobic and
totally fine.
racist.
That's not fine, like in my opinion. But I'm just saying that I understand what you're saying. It's just the fact that it's like the process of teaching a person or group to accept a set of beliefs uncritically. The uncritical aspect is something that my father actually was against. He was all about teaching me how to learn and how to think in order
Yeah,
to
my dad
succeed.
was a huge skeptic. That's why he was an atheist. There was Bertrand Russell on the shelf at my home next to the Bible.
Right.
But he was also homophobic and racist.
Yeah.
So I grew up and I don't agree with him on that. But I was indoctrinated that way because I was brought up in the South. So I grew up and I learned not to believe those things, but that's indoctrination.
Right.
And if I had children, I would probably indoctrinate them in the ways that I believe, and they would grow up and they would say that they don't believe those things anymore because society progresses and, changes how they believe things. Everybody's indoctrinated.
Because the school indoctrinates kids not to listen to their parents. That's why.
Come on, P. Mars.
What? It's true.
I mean, everybody
Your
gets
school
indoctrinated.
you.
Yeah, everybody gets indoctrinated. They get older, and then they learn how to think for themselves. That's what happens.
Why do you think, like clockwork, when everyone turns
P. Mars, I went
13,
to school in
they
America,
rebel against their
and
parents?
my school did not teach people to go against what your parents
It
say.
does. It
You need to
does.
talk to the people.
It's
You need to
subtle.
no. This is like
Thinks it's the school.
This
People
is
should
like
be
the
taught
argument.
critical thinking skills.
Dude,
This is like the argument with atheists make.
I've done
No, this is
research
like the
into
argument
this.
with atheists make, right? This is like the argument with atheists make. Your church indoctrinates you to believe a bunch of craziness, and you're like, my church didn't do that, and you're like, yeah, I went to this church, right? And my church did this, and now because my church did this, every church does this. Terrible argument, bro. You were indoctrinated not to listen to your parents, not me.
Everyone is. If you go to public
I
schools.
disagree.
Well, you're wrong.
I disagree with that.
I've done research into this, Nathan. I'm sorry, you just don't know what the hell you're talking about.
No, you don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Okay. Well,
The biggest
have you done?
non-statement.
Yeah, I done
What do
research
you
on
mean?
it.
It's not a non-statement. Do you want me to go over it?
No,
Yeah, we don't have time, do we? So.
no, I don't want to hear it.
Like,
but anyways, more
your
importantly,
parents,
everyone gets indoctrinated.
Your parents have old think, right? Like they talk about this in 1984, where it's like they don't want the old think to contaminate the youth. So like the public education like teaches kids like, hey, fuck your parents.
They don't do that in the black.
And
No,
then,
they don't do that in the black community,
and
bro.
then when
Sorry.
it's like you notice like clockwork, when a kid turns like 13, 14 years old, they get this rebellious stage and they start like doing the opposite of what their parents say. It's not fucking like just a stage.
That only happens with white
kids.
kids.
It's the result of the indoctrination.
No, that never happened with me, bro. Sorry. And what are you talking about? Every person have this rebellious phase. You know? It doesn't matter what age. You ever heard about terrible twos?
Yeah. He's like Peppa Pig. Peppa Pig's brainwashing the kids to be terrible twos.
Yeah. Anyways, though, more importantly, though, I agree with Kat. Everyone gets indoctrinated.
I respectfully disagree.
We can agree to disagree.
That we can, Kat, because we're at least acquaintances.
Right now, Kat is right, and I have to be honest. You're wrong.
A lot of kids are indoctrinated to be racist. They don't even know why they're racist.
Yeah. Oh, I agree with
Like
that.
P. Mars.
I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Like P. Mars.
Nah, P. Mars, he fights it. He fights the indoctrination.
Yeah.
No, he doesn't. He says
Yes,
just
he-
like this.
He
I tell
fights
you why.
I know
The
he
number
does.
one defense. The number one defense for everyone that's racist is, I'm not racist, but these people need to do better, right? They are going to ignore the past, right, of systemic racism, and just tell another group of minorities that, hey, the reason why you're here is because of your fault, because of you.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't be upset that in the past, when this word was used, right, like the N word or any other racist term or any other negative stereotype to cause separation within society, you shouldn't get angry because I used this word. It doesn't hurt you because it doesn't hurt me. Racism. Anyways, go ahead, P. Mars.
I think
The racism, honestly, doesn't even have to deal with color half the time because they're racist against Jews and they're white.
Yeah, that's the sad part about it, man. They
It
just
is.
hate the fact that America is a melting pot.
I think like you shouldn't blame other people for your problems. You should take every individual. It's their responsibility for where they are in life, and they
Right.
gotta, like,
So 13 to 14-year-olds can't blame school when they hate their parents. Right?
He's gonna say that's propaganda. It was designed that way. But
He's talking about individual accountability just after ranting about how it's the school's fault that kids hate their parents. It's ridiculous. Pick a side.
this is what they do.
well,
This is what they
we
do, man.
have reality consists of determinate factors, but we can transcend them, right?
Transcend them to do what? Act like they're not deterministic? Act like you are free will when they're still deterministic? What's your point, P. Mars?
Right. Like, so by understanding how I was indoctrinated, I can overcome the determinism and try to be.
But it's not their fault. It's your fault, right?
Yes, it's my fault.
People should not blame anyone else. They should only blame themselves. This is what you said.
They should take responsibility.
Yes,
If you
take
want-
responsibility
if you
for your
want freedom.
indoctrination.
Yes.
Good.
I could tell you how the racism between Italian people was very large, so much that they didn't want their kids to even know Italian. They weren't even taught
Yeah.
Italian, right? That doesn't happen
Mhm.
with Spanish people because our culture is very strong, just like it is as strong as Italian people, right? They have the same food and music and language, right? But they were also taught don't speak Italian because white people will single you out, right?
Yeah.
Meanwhile,
Oh, they still do that
they're
nowadays, too.
supposed to be white. Most of them marry Jewish people. They marry into Jewish families, right? It's kind of promoted.
Yeah.
So, they wanted to get out of that stereotype. What did they do? They indoctrinated their kids to have zero culture. I've seen it firsthand. I grew up in the neighborhoods. The
In Tennessee,
Italian
at least
parents
one
would tell
person
me
killed,
themselves.
14 others injured after a gunman stormed a Kroger grocery store Thursday afternoon near Memphis. Police say the suspect was also found dead, apparently of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. CNN's Ryan Young live in Collierville, Tennessee, with the latest on this. Ryan.
John, you can think about the pain that's here in this community. So many people